The California Central Valley supplies 25% of the nation's food and 40% of its nuts and fruits, all on less than 1% of U.S. farmland. Producing this much food has created a demand for water that is overstressing the groundwater resources underlying the Central Valley. Excessive pumping can have detrimental effects on groundwater quantity, quality, and availability. To help slow and reverse the declining groundwater levels across the Central Valley, some growers and irrigation districts have engaged in a form of managed aquifer recharge where they flood select fields outside the growing season, allowing excess stream flow to seep into the soil and down to the aquifer. In conducting flood managed aquifer recharge, site selection is critical to success. This almond orchard outside Tulare, California might be a good recharge site if it overlies coarse-grained sediments that are rich in sand and gravel, which water can easily flow through down to the aquifer. However, fine-grained sediments rich in clay or silt will impede the flow of water. This could cause water to pond at the surface, resulting in water loss through evaporation and weakened almond tree roots. Our goal is to identify the best fields, or areas within fields, for recharge. One way to locate the coarse sediments is to directly sample the ground using technologies such as cone penetrometer testing. Here, a hydraulic press forces an instrumented cone into the ground and records the pressure required to penetrate different sediment layers. This makes it possible to test the sediment type to depths of over 100 feet. By testing at different points, we can start to draw up a map of the different sediment layers across the almond orchard. Here, we see an example of cone penetrometer data where intervals of coarse-grained sands and gravels are shown in orange and yellow, while intervals of fine-grained silts and clays are shown in green and blue. While cone penetrometer data is highly accurate, it provides poor lateral coverage. You can't be sure that the sediment layers observed in one hole are laterally continuous, and testing across entire fields and orchards is impractical. We need a technology that can rapidly and non-invasively image large areas. To fill in this data gap, researchers from the Hydrogeophysics group at Aarhus University in Denmark deployed a towed transient electromagnetic induction instrument called the tTEM. This instrument can image beneath the ground in a similar manner to how a medical MRI machine can image into the human body. An all-terrain vehicle tows the tTEM across the survey area, while the transmitter loop emits electromagnetic pulses that the receiver loop uses to image over 200 feet into the ground. In October of 2017, researchers from Stanford University invited Esben Auken, the head of the Hydrogeophysics group, to help locate recharge pathways underlying an almond orchard outside Tulare. Using the tTEM system, the team was able to survey the entire 80-hectare almond orchard in only 6 hours. Here we see the 3D map imaged by the tTEM in the almond orchard. Although the map extends 150 feet into the ground, it is shown projected on top of satellite imagery. The tTEM image does not show sediment type. Instead, it displays a property called electrical resistivity. The cool blue and green colors correspond to low resistivity, and the warm red and purple colors correspond to high resistivity. We can see layered, connected structures in the resistivity map. This is because resistivity is largely controlled by the different types of sediment layers. This means we can convert the measured resistivity to sediment type. To make this conversion, we must formulate a mathematical transform between resistivity and sediment type using the tTEM measurements and cone penetrometer tests. Here, we show one cone penetrometer test log and the nearest tTEM resistivity measurements, with the closest measurement given as a black line and the rest given as gray lines. We see that the high resistivity zones are typically associated with coarser sediments, while the low resistivity zones are typically associated with finer sediments. By linking the electrical resistivity measurements to the observed local geology, we can estimate the fraction of coarse sediments, shown in yellow, and fine sediments, shown in blue, at different depths into the ground. In this example, we see that the tTEM estimated sediment types, shown on the right, overall do a good job of matching the cone penetrometer sediment types, shown on the left. We can extend this transform to all tTEM measurements to estimate the sediment types across the entire almond orchard. In our 3D map of estimated sediment type, the dark blue patches indicate sediments that are likely silt and clay rich, while the bright yellow patches indicate sediments that are likely sand and gravel rich. This high resolution 3D map illuminates the interconnected pathways between the sand and gravel rich layers, allowing us to identify potentially viable areas for flood based recharge. In addition to the tTEM system, we also tested an instrument carried by a drone that is capable of monitoring a field during flooding when it is otherwise inaccessible to the tTEM. We collaborated with a Japanese company, Neoscience, and environmental consultants at Oyo Corporation to fly a recently developed drone TEM system. The drone TEM works by placing a large transmitter on the ground and flying the receiver over the almond orchard using a drone. By flying multiple drone TEM surveys at different times during a recharge event, we may be able to image changes in resistivity associated with the movement of water through the permeable flow paths in the ground. Our vision is the combined use of sediment type maps from cone penetrometer testing, tTEM surveys, and drone TEM monitoring to map the subterranean flow paths the recharge water will follow from the ground surface down into the aquifer. These flow paths could help inform managed aquifer recharge decisions and help the Central Valley manage its groundwater resources. My name is Gordon Osterman, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Stanford University working with Rosemary Knight, a professor in the geophysics department. If you have questions about the work presented here, please reach out to us using the contact information on the screen. We would like to thank the Almond Board of California for funding this research. We also thank Aaron Fukuda from the Tulare Irrigation District for his help with this study, and Ron Clark for giving us access to his almond orchard.